18 years ago, in the quiet coastal city of Clearwater, Maine, 19-year-old Emily Harrington was last seen leaving her favorite music lounge by the bay. Her disappearance shattered her family and sent waves of anxiety through the entire city, a city that prided itself on safety, tradition, and community. Police soon focused their attention on Luke Harper, a 28-year-old local handyman, well known around town. But there was no trace of Emily's car, no body, and only a handful of cryptic clues. The case faded into cold silence, but for Diane Harrington, Emily's fiercely devoted mother, hope never truly died. Every year, she marked the anniversary with silent prayers and a meticulously maintained shrine in Emily's untouched bedroom. The breakthrough that would reignite the case came not from new detective methods, but from the unpredictable tides of the Penobscot River, which one spring morning exposed something glittering among driftwood and silt. The discovery would unravel the secrets of that night, shocking Clearwater to its core. On the chilly night of March 27, 2006, the shoreline bar Baylight Lounge was crowded with college students celebrating spring's arrival. Through smoky haze and the pulse of classic rock, Emily, her curly blonde hair pulled back, a splash of laughter in her voice, left her half-empty glass at the edge of a battered table. Security cameras captured her stepping out into the windy night, streetlights reflected in endless puddles. She paused to speak with Luke Harper, his rugged frame familiar to every local. In the grainy surveillance footage, Emily stood with arms crossed, her expression tight and wary, while Luke gestured animatedly, his face shadowed and unreadable. Emily's best friend, Marissa, later recalled seeing Emily glance nervously at her phone and then back at Luke, as if weighing whether to call for help or walk away. At precisely 12:03 a.m., Emily sent Marissa a short, almost dismissive text. "Luke's giving me a ride home." Moments later, her phone lost signal and was never active again. Nearby, a taxi driver in a white Ford Crown Victoria watched as a navy blue Honda Civic surged out of the lot, slick tires hissing on wet asphalt. What caught his attention was the battered yellow pickup truck, trailing so close its headlights almost merged with the Civic's taillights. Within minutes, Emily Harrington's path faded into the mist forever, or so it seemed. The next morning, as early sunlight crept across the damp cobblestones of Clearwater, Diane Harrington followed her Saturday ritual calling Emily, expecting her daughter's cheerful voice. The phone rang and rang, unanswered. At first, Diane thought Emily was sleeping off the late night. But by noon, when Marissa confessed she hadn't heard from Emily either, and her calls went straight to voicemail. A cold terror took root. Diane's trembling hands dialed Clearwater PD. "My daughter never stays out without telling me. She always calls." Within the hour, 2 officers arrived at the Harrington home, their faces masked in practiced concern. They took statements and rushed to the Baylight Lounge's parking lot, now bright in morning sun, littered with cigarette butts, a broken umbrella, and fast food wrappers half soaked from the previous night's rain. Near the camera's field of view, the police found an abandoned soda can with a lipstick smear, a torn velvet scrunchie, and, most startling of all, deep tire streaks carved into the mud near the lot's exit evidence that someone left in a hurry. The clues were logged, bagged, and photographed. "This doesn't feel like she left on her own," one detective muttered, as the scene was carefully combed for evidence. Luke Harper, the last person to see Emily, was soon summoned for questioning. He walked in calm as ever, but there was a cold detachment about him. "Yeah, I offered her a ride," he said, voice flat. "She wanted to stop at the old dock to think. I dropped her off, watched her walk down the pier. Then I left. That's all. I swear." but when pressed for specific security footage from the dock, witnesses, any proof he left her safely. Luke hesitated. The city dock's cameras had been out since a nor'easter storm months ago, leaving a frustrating gap. Luke repeated his innocence, adamant but emotionless, arms folded, gaze fixed on the table. Meanwhile, Emily's friends gathered at the station. Marissa, stricken with tears, told police. She was uneasy around Luke. He always showed up where he wasn't wanted. Another friend, Ben, added. She said he creeped her out. But Emily didn't want drama. Despite their discomfort, their statements were not enough for charges. By evening, the news had broken. Clearwater College student vanishes, no leads. Emily's luminous smile stared out from every headline in Maine. That night, local TV showed Diane Harrington's tired, pleading face. "Please, if anyone knows anything, tell us," she begged. The city's peaceful facade was shattered. Clearwater, once a haven by the sea, was suddenly a place haunted by suspicion. Part 3. English. In the days that followed, Clearwater transformed. Flyers with Emily's photo appeared on telephone poles, restaurant windows, and church doors. Volunteers, many strangers. To Emily joined police in searching every alley, woodland, and shoreline. The local precinct called in state dive teams to explore the rocky banks and the restless Penobscot River. Boats combed the water, their engines humming through early morning fog, while families walked the river's muddy edges, calling Emily's name into the bleak silence. Rumors ignited under the city's surface. Some whispered about Emily's ex-boyfriend, a volatile young man rumored to have argued with her on campus that spring. Others pointed to Mr. Aldridge, a reclusive literature professor who, students whispered, often crossed boundaries with female students, sending them messages after class hours. Even the taxi driver who'd seen the two mysterious cars was mentioned, given a murky past that included complaints of inappropriate behavior. The Harringtons endured each theory like a fresh wound. Every rumor felt like losing Emily all over again, each story a different ending, each one a new shadow in the endless night. Then, as April faded into a gloomy, rain-soaked May, Marissa made a startling discovery while clearing Emily's dorm desk. Beneath a pile of textbooks, she found a slim, floral-patterned journal. Police were called immediately. The journal's entries shook even the most stoic investigators. In careful, looping script, Emily wrote, "I see the yellow truck everywhere. I tried to run errands today, and it was parked outside the post office. Every time I turn around, someone's watching. I haven't told Mom. She'd panic." On another page, she scribbled, "Woke at 2 a.m. Thought I saw someone by the window. Tall, wearing a ball cap. Gone before I could get up." No names, no confirmations, just a suffocating paranoia that pointed to a stalker, perhaps Luke, perhaps someone else. With the town already on edge, the journal fueled anxiety. Local talk shows invited criminal psychologists and investigators who speculated openly about the identity of the man in the yellow truck. The police increased patrols, but with every door they knocked on and every face they questioned, the case only grew colder and stranger. Diane, meanwhile, became nearly a ghost in her own home. At night she sat in Emily's room, the lamp left burning, the bed untouched, reading and rereading the words in her daughter's journal. Each line was a plea for help she never saw in time. By early summer, Clearwater's spirit was dissolving under constant rain and doubt. Search teams fanned out each weekend, but their discoveries brought only heartbreak. A scorched scarf, old coins, a waterlogged sneaker that wasn't even Emily's. River divers came up shivering and empty-handed from the currents below the Bay Bridge. The police combed through every local garage, tow yard, and abandoned property in search of Emily's Navy Honda Civic, but it was as if the car had evaporated. The stifling atmosphere bred new waves of suspicion. Some in the town began to accuse one another. The professor, Mr. Aldridge, was questioned, as were several of Emily's classmates, and even Marissa herself. The yellow pickup, now locally infamous, was the focus of countless tips and alleged sightings, but each one fizzled out, leaving police and family exhausted. It was in August, just as hope seemed to finally sputter out, when a retired dock worker named Glenn Booker walked into the police station. His lined face was heavy with guilt. "That night, I saw a Civic roll past," he whispered. "Yellow pickup followed so close. I didn't want trouble, so I kept quiet. The news. I can't forget that." The police redoubled their efforts, checking every record of yellow pickups in Clearwater and neighboring towns. But matching the mysterious stalker to a real name was like chasing a ghost in the fog. Each promising lead dissolved into nothing. Meanwhile, Luke Harper, the handyman and prime suspect, became oddly active in community events, organizing search parties, speaking at candlelit vigils, and lending a hand at benefit drives for the Harrington family. In photos, he was always present, stoic and somber, never missing an opportunity to be seen grieving with the others. But to Detective Monica Graves, something felt off. Privately, she told her partner, "He's too involved. Most innocent people don't show up everywhere all the time." Yet without clear evidence, her colleagues urged her not to fixate on gut feelings. Summer faded into fall, and the case ground nearly to a halt. The few pieces of evidence, the journal, scrunchie, and discarded can, remained frustratingly circumstantial. Diane Harrington grew thin and silent, her days blending into one long, hopeless search. In interviews, she barely held back tears. "I just want to know where my daughter is," she whispered. "Whatever happened, please." Yet true relief would remain out of reach for years still to come, until a chance glimmer in the water and the haunting persistence of a mother unwilling to let go. Years rolled by, and for the Harringtons, time meant only the deepening ache of uncertainty. Diane refused to touch Emily's bedroom. The soft blue blanket stayed neatly tucked, her daughter's childhood posters curling on the walls, the desk by the window cluttered with schoolbooks and a worn hairbrush. Each morning, Diane opened the curtains, letting in golden light. But nothing could ease the gloom that had settled in her heart. As years passed, hope flickered, but never truly died. Diane spent her evenings writing letters to local newspapers, investigators, even television shows that featured missing persons. She appeared in several TV interviews, reading passages from Emily's journal, her voice trembling with grief, but edged by determination. "As long as I live, I will not let Emily's story be forgotten," she promised. Meanwhile, Clearwater changed. Where once prayer vigils filled the church pews, now only Diane attended regularly, candles flickering by Emily's photo at the altar. The city's enthusiasm waned, new tragedies came, and the Harringtons seemed like just another weary family in the background noise of loss. Luke Harper never left Clearwater. His presence at annual memorials became routine, his words of hope and steadfastness drawing guarded looks from some, trust from others. He would clasp Diane's hands at the door and tell her, "We're not giving up." His touch sent chills down her spine, but she nodded, unable to challenge him publicly without evidence. For almost a decade, the case lingered in the cold case files. Detectives changed. The yellow pickup became a local urban legend, and Emily's smile faded behind dust-laden flyers in cafes and supermarkets. Then, after nearly 11 years, a new hope arose from the most unexpected place, the river that cuts through Clearwater's heart. In early spring, relentless rain and the swollen Penobscot River finally swept aside decades of mud and silt, exposing a glint of navy blue metal tangled in driftwood below the old railway bridge. It wasn't long before a fisherman spotted it and called the police. The recovery team arrived as curious onlookers gathered on the bridge above, whispering prayers into the biting wind. The vehicle, crusted in barnacles and half buried, showed telltale traces of the vanished Civic. The worn college parking sticker, the faded Baylight Lounge bumper decal. As the car was hauled from the muck, Diane Harrington stood at the river's edge, gripping Emily's scarf with white knuckles, her body trembling as the first proof of her daughter's fate emerged from the depths. The Civic's doors were fused shut by years of river silt. As technicians pried them open, the crowd fell silent, the only sound the groan of metal and the rush of river water spilling out. Inside, the driver's seat held a faded messenger bag. Diane recognized it instantly. Emily's, the embroidered initials still visible through the grime. Within the bag was a student ID, warped and water-stained, with Emily's gentle smile still faithfully printed across the card. Police also recovered a torn sweatshirt and wedged under the passenger seat a single silver earring shaped like a crescent moon, identical to the pair Emily wore the night she vanished. But there was more. After scanning the mud-caked interior, the forensics team found a plastic grocery bag wedged between the seats. Inside it, several strands of coarse, dark hair, not matching Emily's blonde. Everyone's heart sank. If the car revealed clues, it also raised new questions. Was someone else in the car that night? Or had these items been planted? The windshield, police noted, showed a spiderweb of cracks radiating outward. Forensic analysis would later confirm the glass was struck repeatedly from inside, evidence of someone desperately trying to break free. As the Civic was towed away, the crowd parted for Diane, her face ashen, eyes wide with the horror and relief that, after so many years, part of her daughter's story had finally surfaced. She clung to Emily's scarf and whispered, "I found you. But what happened? What did you go through?" The next day saw the city erupt in turmoil. Local news led with headlines. Missing Clearwater student's car pulled from river after 11 years, accompanied by close-ups of the battered vehicle and Emily's ID, her youthful smile now a symbol of heartbreak. Detectives Monica Graves and her new partner, Ethan Bailey, immediately reopened the case. They submitted the hair, the earring, and every scrap of evidence to the state crime lab, hoping modern DNA technology would unmask the shadowy figure who'd haunted Emily's final days. The sense of dread and urgency was everywhere. Old rumors returned with new life, and for the first time in years, Clearwater believed finally answers might come. Forensic results returned within weeks, sending the detective team into a whirlwind. The dark hair from the grocery bag did not match Emily, nor anyone in her family or the National Criminal Database. It was coarse, thick, belonging to an unidentified male with no prior record. The earring and sweatshirt were proven to be Emily's, and on the inside of the torn sweatshirt's cuff, crime lab technicians found a mixture of skin cells, Emily's, and a faint second profile male again, but degraded, making clear identification nearly impossible. The windshield, riddled with outward fractures, confirmed the agonizing theory. Emily had fought for her life in the final moments, pounding the glass so hard her knuckles surely bled, desperately seeking escape. The release of these facts sent shockwaves through the community. News cycles ran with the headline, "Police confirm Emily Harrington fought her kidnapper inside submerged car." Candlelight vigils burned anew on the riverbanks. Neighbors once quiet in their grief began sharing old suspicions with detectives. Names, memories, and rumors that grew sharper now, no longer dulled by or dismissed as typical small-town gossip. Detective Graves and Bailey drew up a new map of suspects. They interviewed the ex-boyfriend, now living in Portland, whose alibi was solid, but whose past temper still left a scratch on public memory. They cross-examined Mr. Aldridge, who provided records that placed him at a faculty retreat out of state the night Emily vanished. Even the old taxi driver was brought in, but he was frail and confused, lost in memories decades old. Yet again, the investigation circled back to Luke Harper, who now seemed exhausted by his own visibility. When brought in for further questioning, Luke kept his answers clipped and defensive. I never heard Emily. I tried to help find her. I did everything I could. His hands shook, but his gaze never wavered. But when Graves showed him a photo of the crescent moon, earring mud-streaked but gleaming, Luke's face paled. He took a long, shaky breath, and for the first time in 11 years, words eluded him. Outside, as news vans crowded the Harrington street, and whispers echoed in every corner shop, Diane Harrington felt herself on the verge of answers, and of a truth far darker than she had ever imagined. Part 8, English. The atmosphere in Clearwater grew electric. Every neighbor, shop owner, and passerby became an amateur sleuth. On a stormy night at the police station, Detective Graves and Bailey met for a late briefing. They clung to every new scrap of evidence, driven by a sense Emily deserved more than a tragic legend. The lab soon returned partial results on the degraded male DNA from Emily's sweatshirt. It didn't match Luke Harper. The revelation hit the town like a thunderbolt. If the main suspect was not the source of the strongest evidence, who was? Yet Luke's nervous reaction to the earring photo gnawed at Graves. She dug back into old interviews and discovered a detail previously overlooked. A high school friend remembered Emily wearing the earring days before her disappearance, after helping Luke repair his leaky roof. She always wore those crescents afterward, the friend said. Maybe Luke complimented her. She liked it. This, combined with his obvious distress, kept the detective's focus on him. Pressured further, Luke finally confessed to something. Emily and I fought that night outside the lounge, he admitted, voice shaking. She was upset. I tried to apologize, but she told me to leave her alone. When Graves pressed on, he broke down, sobbing. I wanted to protect her. I should have. But I left. I swear, I left her in the lot. But if not Luke, then who? The yellow pickup seen trailing Emily's Civic remained the central mystery. A fresh tip arrived from an older couple living by the riverside. The night Emily vanished, they'd seen the same battered yellow truck idling under the streetlight for nearly half an hour, engine running, as if waiting for something. At Graves's urging, police poured through endless registration records. Finally, one vehicle stood out. Licensed to a reclusive neighbor by the bridge, a man who had moved out the following year. When questioned, the current resident revealed a hidden compartment in the old garage. Inside, police found a molding blue jacket and a faded ball cap. Both tested positive for DNA, matching the male profile from Emily's sweatshirt. The town buzzed as the police rushed to issue a warrant. The trail led to a distant coastal county, where the suspect, a man named Russell Pike, had been quietly living under a new name with no criminal history, blending expertly with every town he moved to. Russell Pike's arrest happened on a bleak Thursday morning, far from the eyes of the town he'd haunted for so long. He offered no resistance as police surrounded his modest home in a sleepy coastal village miles away. When handcuffed, he stared blankly. No anger, no panic, just a hollow vacancy. At the Clearwater station, Graves and Bailey confronted him with the evidence: the blue jacket, the ball cap, the matching DNA, the statements of the elderly couple, and finally, the horrifying facts about the Civic and Emily's last moments. For hours, Russell sat in silence, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the table. Only when shown the photo of Emily's crescent moon earring did a tremor pass through his hands. Slowly, his story unraveled. Russell had watched Emily for weeks before her disappearance, lurking around campus and the waterfront, driven by an obsession he couldn't explain. That night, he saw her leave the lounge alone and waited for Luke Harper to drive away. He followed Emily, trapping her near the river bridge, where he threatened her into his truck. When she fought, he panicked, dragging her to her Civic and forcing her behind the wheel, then sending the car and Emily into the water before fleeing in his yellow pickup. Russell described the terror in her eyes, his own confusion and regret, but insisted, "I never wanted to hurt her. Everything happened too fast. I didn't mean—" Grief twisted his words into sobs, but his crimes were beyond forgiveness. When the full confession was read to Diane Harrington, she wept not with relief, but with the overwhelming pain of finally knowing. She stood on the riverbank where the Civic had lain hidden for so many years and released Emily's scarf into the flowing water, whispering goodbye. Russell Pike faced trial for kidnapping, murder, and evidence tampering, with the entire town of Clearwater looking on as justice finally caught up with a shadow they'd barely known existed. The trial of Russell Pike gripped Clearwater and surrounding counties for months. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, relatives, and townspeople who clung to every word, searching for catharsis or closure. Russell sat motionless, neither denying his actions nor seeking pity. The town listened, stunned, as the prosecution laid out each step he'd taken, his surveillance, abduction, and the final, unfathomable choice that condemned Emily to the darkness beneath the river. Emily's mother, Diane, testified with unflinching courage. She spoke not of vengeance, but of community, warning the court and media of the dangers that can grow unseen in small towns, where trust is deep and questions are few. "Let Emily's story change us," she pleaded. "Let it remind us to watch over each other and to never ignore a voice in fear." The jury returned its verdict quickly, guilty on all charges. Russell Pike was sentenced to life in prison with no chance for parole. Though a measure of justice was served, no verdict could restore what had been lost or erase the years of silent suffering. After the sentencing, Diane returned to the riverside as the first snowfall of winter dusted the banks. She left a bouquet of blue wildflowers on the water's edge and turned to the camera crews. "My daughter's story is over, but Clearwater's isn't," she said softly. "Let's not forget her, or any missing child. Protect each other. Listen. Speak up." Her words echoed in every home, a legacy of vigilance and hope. With that, Emily's room remained unchanged, but no longer felt haunted. The darkness had been pierced, if not banished, by persistence and truth. The yellow pickup and the legend of the vanished girl became cautionary tales whispered at dusk, a reminder that even in the safest places, shadows can linger, and that the greatest justice is caring for one another while the world spins on.